webcast. Today, our special guest is John Hartman. He's Chief Technology Officer at Iceberg Theory. And if you haven't heard of him yet, you certainly will in the coming weeks and months. And it's an honor. We go back almost 2 decades in various circles, PSU, Portland State University, marketing circles, technology circles. We go way back. But John, thanks for having us, being a guest on our show.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, great. So now I could ask you a host of questions, but you were forthright enough to put together a deck that you're going to share with us and talk through kind of your background and your journey through tech. We'll touch a bit on the metaverse and your POV on what it is and where it's going. You were first, I believe, involved in the mid 90s, but we'll let you talk about that. And so without further ado, why don't you go ahead and give us a background, share your screen, and we'll look forward to hearing what you have to say.
You bet. You bet. So I'll get this. All right. Are we good with, you got my deck up? The Iceberg Theory logo there?
You're good to go, brother.
All right. So I, again, John Hartman with Iceberg Theory. We build worlds. So I've been in media and doing a lot of stuff for a very long time. And I wasn't thinking about how loud and annoying that was going to be when I put this together to some extent to speak over. But I have over 10 features. I've been doing VR since '94. Was in Ohio building a state-of-the-art post-production facility when I met Elevate Pictures. I came back here, did some consulting work, ended up coming on with them, and became their director of research and development for about 4 years. I've been leaning very heavily back into virtual reality, metaverse. We do a lot of live events and a live event production, but I'll get more into that as we go through this deck. But basically Elevate and a company called Starlight Runner. And Starlight Runner, every person I can almost guarantee in the audience has been touched by something that Jeff and the team at Starlight Runner have done. He helped consult on the story Bible for Avatar, as you see, Spider-Man, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He wrote the actual, the giant Bible that is the Men in Black kind of story Bible, was a key part of that team, as well as many, many others. So we were blessed a little while back to come together with the two companies, and we formed what we called Iceberg Theory. And we've worked with and for this. I'm going to say things and they're going to sound conceited, and I don't mean them to be. I don't know how I got here. I'm really just kind of a big, dumb, lucky leprechaun to some extent, and in that I wandered into the right place at the right time, and looked at the right things. But this is a small sample of the clients that we have. And I'll touch on kind of some of the most active things that we're doing very much towards the end of this. Here's a span, and I actually was proofing this, and there's some incorrectness because there's some more on some of these other things, but this is a general sense of kind of, as a team, what we've done. And across the medium spectrum, it is gobstopping. Produced books, graphic novels, games, movies, TV shows, live events, live series, all sorts of things like that. And I'll speak a little bit to that too, especially at the end when I brag about us a little bit. But really, at the core of what we talk about and what we do all the time is trying to understand what is a virtual world. And yes, there's a three-dimensional virtual experience that we consider from these different perspectives, and there's stories that flow through media, and kind of all media is digital in general. So by kind of crafting an idea that lives through all of these platforms and grows, we building out these kind of virtual worlds. And what was a kind of story Bible framework of old entertainment media has kind of evolved into these kind of literal, kind of figurative 3D spaces and sets and things in video games and augmented reality and all of these other mediums. So I'm just going to give you an idea of, so this is basically kind of our, what we would call kind of our white paper, our case studies of what we've done with some of our previous clients to give people a sample of the kinds of work we do, because it's pretty overwhelming, but there is a method to the madness or structures. We use a liquid methodology in and around transmedia, And in laying this out, you'll see how we've done this for different clients. So one of the most amazing things over the last year was to release all of these artists with Columbia Records into the world when the world was shut down for the most part. And when I get to Little TJ, that was the genesis of this. But so we've been building these, what used to be what happened in a bar in LA when a band would get up on stage and the A&R reps and all that, Spotify and all the industry people would come together. Well, they couldn't do that. So we created ways for people to do that over virtual, and created virtual sets and integrated production, and using these real-time CGI production techniques and animation techniques, have created a bunch of unique experiences for their new artist releases. And again, this has been a mix of 2D, 3D, all of these different kind of mobile experiences, live chats, a bunch of different ways to try to kind of create that virtualized set and sessions so that these amazing artists could share their talent with the world. And we were able to achieve some pretty mind-bending results with, taking what are real-time game engine techniques and modern production techniques, and really push the boundaries on some things. So where we really kind of honed our skills in this leading into the pandemic, because this was at literally the height of the pandemic where no one was going anywhere. We launched Little TJ, we did a live Twitch stream, we got integrations from all of these other, the FaZe clan, the mob, all these people showed up. Twitch, it was awesome. It was amazing. And don't tell anyone, but it was hosted from a computer in Sherwood, Oregon, with a single non-redundant internet connection, which would have been unheard of in a time that wasn't COVID. But we tested enough, we played around, we had a redundancy fallback if stuff would have happened. Anyways, that's all to say that this got pulled off in the middle of all this craziness, and we were able to create all of this really cool work and collaborate with these young talented artist, TJ, and allow him to release his album to the world in the height of the pandemic. And that led to all of the other kind of experiences. And I don't know what the percentage is, but I do believe we've been an integral part in most of the launch from Columbia since. I know I touched a lot of that work early on. I've got so many things going on currently that I don't nearly do as much with I'm in like the final meetings, not the build meetings, if you will. So going back a little further and kind of giving you some skinny around Starlight Runner. So, and really there's a great genesis story here that I'm going to tell about our CEO of Elevate and Jeff Gomez, the CEO of Starlight Runner. So Jeff and team at Starlight Runner helped Coca-Cola put together what was the Happiness Factory back in the day, and really introduced the idea of liquid and linked and liquid methodologies and transmedia, these kind of cross-media expressions can be with Coke. And they did a massive, and this was, I know probably part of our audience is a little young for this, but it was phenomenal back in the day, and not to gray myself out, but and still inspires to this day, and it inspired a young Mr. Jeremy Hughes to lean heavily into this liquid philosophy that one day, many years later, now they work together directly based off of these philosophies and modalities of how we create and manage and track and, keep track of what are giant worlds of happiness, or whatever the project may call for. So the just sheer joy here. I mean, so much fun was had with this campaign back in the day. I can't even begin to tell you what a foundational piece this was back in marketing. And again, not trying to toot our own horn. I would have told you this way before I was ever a partner with Jeff Gomez, what amazing piece of work this was. And so did the industry. So I feel like I'm not bragging too much. Another one of our clients, we were working directly with Justice. We helped a tween girls clothing brand build a studio model. So we built Justice Studios with them, built out a whole series of COVID related. And I hate to say this, but unfortunately this became one of the victims of COVID. In the end, Justice is still around, but the expression and what we were trying to go for here, the parent company, anyways, I don't need to get into the way it ended. The way it started was beautiful. We were aligned with a whole bunch of music, a whole bunch of different things. We were doing live events with a much younger demographic. We had a lot of synergies with graphic design and graphic models and 3D spaces that we were pretty far down the pipe with, to be honest. And when the financial issues became a problem for the retail sector in general, there was some reshuffling. And so we unfortunately are still waiting to see how that one pans out. And I'll just leave it at that and say it was an amazing project with some amazing, amazing people that we got to work with. These, again, a lot of young, really, really young here in this instance, musical talent and actors, actors, those kinds of folks, and got to build those robots, which I got to say, this little robot world that we had built, the tiny world, was just so fun, so fun. Another one that just touches my heart and is just a sheer blessing was we got to work with Pelotonia, and Pelotonia has raised hundreds of millions of dollars for cancer research. This is an amazing organization. It is coming out of the Midwest, growing to a much larger national kind of thing. But basically, they're incentivized to raise for cancer and cancer research, and they've done tons and tons, especially with the James Cancer facility there in Columbus. But we got to put together their Legends Live event. Again, we've done this multiple years with them, so this is a recurring piece that we do. So it's really centered around the kind of human nature of the work that they do. And we really needed to take what was that connection, the visceral touch of being there and supporting some of the people that are going through some of the worst things in their life. And to try to take that and virtualize it. It was just an honor. And so we got to work with some pretty amazing people who do awesome things and people who've been through a lot of hard times themselves. So this one was a blessing. And really, I would highly recommend anybody support this organization as much as possible, because they do amazing things for people with a horrible, horrible disease. And I'm going to move on because I got a little choked up, and I'm sorry. So really, that was unintended. Apologies. So we get a lot of what is virtual production. So I've kind of gone through a number of the projects. A lot of that came from being able to take and innovate in-game engine, be able to iterate shots, motions, characters, design elements, post-procedural effects, environments, right? And you're going to see some, right? Here's the subway from the little TJ. This is a cutscene from within Unity or the 3D program. Some of the other pieces here, using technologies like AI, where we're mapping characters' faces onto avatars. And then the bottom corner there is me actually in a headset rigging a 3D puppeted head in VR with an eye tracking headset that does blinks and all this kind of crazy stuff. So it's blending a whole series of new technologies, a whole series of production techniques, and then leaning into the brand expertise, kind of commercial production and storefront experience design that we have as a team, and turning that into what is a live event and ongoing recurring experiences, which are being referred to a lot as the metaverse. And well, I've been here a while, guys. Oh boy. People are going to do the math. I hate to say this, but I've been doing VR since 1994. It was a very different world back then. But there is a massive seminal change in what has happened. We've proven, so of all the statistics that can tell you why the metaverse is going to be real, this one to me rings true. I was listening to a senior executive from LinkedIn speak about the number of remote jobs pre-pandemic. It was 1 in 67, if I remember my numbers correctly, before, and it is now 1 in 17 jobs can work remotely. So huge, massive shift in that, you know, how and where and when we're working on things, and how we can actually get work done, and where our tools need to work for us, right? That's a big part of it too, and the innovation around that. So I'm going to try to share what is my a few numbers of years of experience playing around with this. And I'm going to speak to directly a term called, or what you'll see abbreviated as RTCGI, real-time computer graphics, right? So it's the ability to use these game engines to create shots and do things that before, I mean, wow, the budget for this would be astronomical. And I'm going to have everyone, I don't know if there's a chat screen or something, or just we can do this afterwards, but I'm going to show you something here, and then I'll kind of reveal it to the team later. But I want everyone to think about, I'm going to describe this shot. So this was a pilot for a major network series that was being put together that integrated a whole litany of, there was live action on set, there was a bunch of 3D game design, animation pieces, a whole litany of things. And this is one of the shots. I want you guys to think about what this one shot alone cost. And I'll show you the shot.
Capable of hitting 40 miles an hour in even the most rugged terrain, 1,600 pounds per square inch bite, and teeth the size of a small knife. There are few Ice Age animals that could invoke fear like the dire wolf.
So by not having to do the full match move all the way around, and I won't get into too many crazy technical production stuff, and I'll try to keep my language as generalized as possible, because I know we have a pretty broad spectrum audience. But the ability to bring the actor and the 3D element together in that sense, basically what was for him the kind of green ball on a post on the set kind of thing, right? The great part about this is he could actually see that in real time, which made a huge difference in a lot of things. So this isn't the true like 360 camera shot that you'll see sometimes. Those are still a little bit expensive, and you do require some stage, more mobility of the camera. And there's a lot of robots involved in how it gets done.
John, can you see people's guesses there on the chat?
No, I can't. That's the thing. I can't see.
It's a bottom left next to meeting info. There's a little chat.
No. When I go into presentation mode, it
So
covers it.
The ranges are 100K to 300K in increments, roughly.
Okay. All right. We did that for under 10 grand.
Don't tell the client that.
Because we were able to leverage and implement these real-time CGI techniques. And that included bringing someone onto a stage, right? And the ice that he's on is in another. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
It's techniques that we were able to repurpose sets and pieces, or find elements. The most amazing one, I didn't even show you guys. He basically comes from what is that kind of, they found this thing in the ice. And so we animated it from like the raw skin picture. We didn't even have the photogrammetry, just the picture. And we morphed it into the dire wolf. It was awesome. And we did all of that for under 10K because we were able to leverage the techniques that I'm about to kind of get into. And of course, it's Monday, and my lawn guys have decided to go blow no leaves around the yard. My apologies if that is a little loud, and I'll try to overcome it. So, guys, we're back to Metaverse. It's you know, I'm in 3D again, except this time it's not 8 and 16-bit. The headsets I'm looking at on the high end are so photorealistic. It is just gobstopping. There's a 5K per eye headset coming. What we're doing with XR and what certain companies keep being rumored as to doing, and things that I can't speak to when it comes to direct hardware because of things that I know. So I talk in circles sometimes, and I apologize.
John, for the layperson, what is XR versus AR VR?
XR is looking at it as a cross spectrum. So I can look at, I can be in VR or AR, right? It's a blend. It's looking at it in cross media or cross reality, sorry, in its purpose. So it's that idea of how can something be an AR experience for some and a VR for others, right? It's integrating multiple distribution endpoints or channels that people are consuming through, and being able to kind of express these 3D spaces and expressions across that. So that's a big part of. So on the one side, you see the AR, right? The Angry Birds, if you guys can see that, mapped onto a table. You pull it back with your phone and you shoot it, or your other devices that are coming and are here. The haptic feedback devices, right? There's a bunch of things on the market where you can do things to play with things that are an overlay. So that's augmented reality. And then virtual reality is more of like the cinematic experience where you're inside it. And that's that. You'll hear people say the term 6DOF, 6 degrees of freedom. You're in it and you're immersed and you're walking around. It's a very 3D all the way around type of experience. So those are kind of terms you'll hear. AR, VR, and then XR is really kind of in speaking to the whole landscape, because especially as a development ecosystem, sometimes you're going to build for these mixed modalities, if that makes sense to the audience. I apologize. I also don't want to go too far down that developer hat. You bet. And here's some good examples, right? So here's Julius in an eye tracking VR headset. This guy's amazing. World record. You're about to see it. There it is. Here he goes. Holy hell. Oh, it still just boggles my mind. Just boggles my mind. 782 pounds, kids. 782 pounds. With this, oh, jeez. So we measured him and did some stuff with one of the projects we work on the wellness side. There's another slide referencing that on one of the bottom corners. In fact, no, that one. So, you know, VR, this is the immersive, right? This is where we've got you inside 3D space. We're tracking things. We're doing different things with what's going on. Excuse me, just a moment. So these are some examples of some of the VR spaces. I've been working in the space a very long time. There's a lot of things I can't show and express, and even these I like had to get some love to share. But VR is one of the most underdeveloped technology stacks out there beyond what is the game space, especially, right? So there's a lot of development in the game space, but there's a lot of other industry that is really unserviced to this point by VR, AR, and XR, to be honest. A lot of that is all just game builds. And it's amazing, in some of the meetings we go into, these big companies are like, nobody's talking to us about this stuff. So there's a huge opportunity there for anybody who's into this kind of thing to look into those industries. Anyway, so when we think about metaverse, you know, what does this mean? There's a tiny fraction of topics here, right? Things like avatar and item portability in the metaverse, building spaces in an XR landscape. You can see it. Should you fit your story? You know, should it fit? If I can see it, shouldn't it fit in the story world, right? This how you craft these game engines, right? There's a whole litany of these questions, but at the very, very top, I've put here, it's the idea of avatar and item portability in the metaverse. And this has become a kind of, I don't want to call it a sociological fixation, but there is a visualization that we have all kind of put into place this time around when it comes to the metaverse. And it's very much around the idea of what is the expression of Ready Player One. And you know, the ability to make that a reality, and it's not going to be the exact reality that everybody envisions, but to create an ecosystem of shared game mechanics that can interweave items and tokens and all of these kinds of things, you know, this is why metaverse portability is so important, right? And it goes back to the, you know, I mean, we were all in kindergarten, you know, sharing is caring, right? I mean, I don't mean to be so juvenile with the topic, but it really does come back to a fundamental of, we watched, well, Kent can attest to this, we watched Second Life and these other platforms grow to a scale and stop. They are great for what they are, but they have a cap, they have a limit. And anytime you create a closed ecosystem, even if it gets to multi-billions, right, you're still going to get into these issues, whether they be regulatory or just, it's just too much, right? So the ability for people to be able to go and focus on some very specific things, but be able to work in a community, right? It's about building a community of people and a community of things that can come together and work across these metaverse spaces. And so I'm going to tell you guys today about something that we're working on. And this is the biggest thing I had to get approval of. And I almost did it anyways. I want to tell you guys about the code a little bit. It's something that we're working on with a number of partners where we can prove out this model. And it really is, what we're seeing it is our kind of endpoint to the metaverse. It's not the be all end all. The idea here is we are a stop. This is a channel. This is a conduit, a gateway, if you will, to the other spots that are the metaverse, right? So our idea here is, you know, where to? Where do you want to go? I'm not necessarily going to build the insert, you know, some sort of focused demographic thing here, right? I may not build the beach volleyball simulation that, you know, the US Olympians are going to want to use, but you might, right? And so why shouldn't you be able to do that? And we can still work together, and you can work with my ball that I created and the graphics simulator. Anyways, I'm getting way too technical on what can be done in Engine, but it really comes down to these spaces where we can kind of interact. And what we want to do is we want to build a place for artists to create and collaborate, and then evolve that into what is a much larger community of users, and really give the and the artists a place to, you know, go and be able to work together in a way that isn't disruptive to what the canon is for the creators, right? Or run into legal problems because we're looking at this in a very different way, and I'll get into this because this is kind of one of the crux of the conversations, which is, am I fungible or not? It's an existential crisis we face now. I'm kidding. So, and I'm going to define the word fungible because if you're not in gaming and that kind of stuff. So fungible just means a token, a coin of the realm in playing a game, you know, Mario, any of these, right? There's been these fungible elements, coin being a very simple example of a fungible token. Now, what has happened with blockchain and the layer is that the concept of where we go with all of this has taken on some really rough edges, especially in the media lately. Now, when I say blockchain, that is the same technology, or the ledger, that when I refer to it as that, that's what I'm referring to as the blockchain ledger. It's the same concept that's being used for the concept of the NFT. And, you know, the concept of the NFT is inevitable, and it will manifest in one form or another. It's like any other emerging medium. So the question is not whether to proceed with a fundamental ethos. How do we approach this? Where's our heart in all of this, right? And kind of all the smartest people in the space feel that although there may be less money in it, there needs to be a certain set of regulations for NFTs. like most media is regulated, NFT probably needs a little regulation as well. And until that point, proceed, my advice is going to be proceed with caution. And it really comes down to the community around that media and the underlying value of the IP. What is it? A rare high-end market has existed for collectibles of all types, and there's no difference here. An NFT is a high-end collectible, right? It's always existed, and it will. And while we understand the whale market and see that there's an opportunity for revenue, we put our community ahead of profit, and is how we approach this. And because in the long term, we feel that giving the everyday superfan access to these NFT has more potential lifetime value. And a lot of that has to do with what we do and the fact that we get to play with these giants of industry and massive corporations and media properties, right? When you're working with properties that have existed for over 50 years, you think differently than you do when you're creating a campaign or launching a stratagem for a new IP, right? So how we approach, some things may not be the best advice for others, but for us, we look at this as a way to create that collectible asset that is, a valuable, and we want to reward our community. So we don't want to outprice them immediately for these NFTs or anything like that. And honestly, from a technological standpoint, this is a part of a much bigger and better tool, which is the whole blockchain technologies, which allows us to manage inventory and basically give people credit for the hard work that they do. I mean, honestly, at its holistic base, that's one of the things that blockchain is going to allow, and everyone should get behind, because that means all your hard work gets to pay off in the end. I mean, ideally, and that's a big part of what we want to do, and what our partners and some of these conversations about some of the things I might have mentioned are happening, right? We're trying to figure out how to empower the audience and the artist, and that's key. And for us, one of the big things and how it starts in a major way is with a very giant fellow by the name of Ultraman. This was utterly amazing. So Jeff Gomez can attest to this. He as well was a childhood fan, and Ultraman is a very interesting property. This does, they do a lot of monies. Let's just say that. There's a Netflix animation series that's coming with a second season, which is in the middle of the thing here. There are multiple Marvel comics. Ultraman in Japan, there is the Tsuburaya Imagination streaming service, so there's an OTT connected to this, as well as the what has been handed the opportunity that exists for us with our partner Tsuburaya is to create this kind of global fan hub. And so we are blessed that they've trusted us as partners. And so we've built UltramanConnection.com, and I would say check it out. That's the top upper corner graphic over there of the slider. That can give you a lot of history on this IP, but he is one of the greatest heroes of all time, and he is also one of the purists. This IP resonates so deep at a young level and moves across, and it's awesome because we have very young audience materials, and then the anime series on Netflix is a little westernized, a little more edgy. Like there's some meat and potatoes, but at the core of this, for an American audience, I should say, right, some action. At the core, it's about heart with this story, right? And basically, an alien as tall as a skyscraper comes to help save us from the alien kaiju, which are the monsters that invade throughout. This is 55 years of an IP. Tsuburaya just celebrated their 55th anniversary. Founded by E.G. Tsuburaya, You know him from Godzilla, Mothra, and this was the recurring TV series in Japan, and is a massive, massive, massive comparative we use often is in the Japanese market this is akin to Superman, right? When it comes back to the length and the extension of a character and their connection with the culture, right? So it is amazing that we get to work with these folks. There were about 4 other there's some big stuff coming with Ultraman. Keep a lookout. The one thing I was able to get approved that is going to be juicy here is that little logo down at the bottom. That's the mini game we just built that was teased at the last event. So if you went to the last event, you got to hear the influencer from New Rockstars talk about the gameplay. So this game is being launched, and we get to introduce our own team into the Ultraman universe. And so we're super excited and blessed to be able to work with their artists and writers and figure out how the UCL gets introduced to the world. And boy, I wish I could tell you about a lot of more things about that, but I can't, and I apologize. But come to the event. So this property, at the heart of this property, it is amazing because it is live releases for the media. And just to give this, sorry, I'll give it a little more historical context, and then I'll speak to the live event. So historically, this was caught up in some litigation globally, and it cleared a number of years ago, which is why you've seen this massive resurgence, and why maybe some of you never heard of Ultraman until the Netflix thing or something like that, and then others of you are like, I remember this vividly from my childhood. It's so amazing. Where did it go? Right? It kind of went away for a little while, and now it's back, and we get to shepherd it back, which is one of the blessings as well, because we get to kind of revitalize and reintroduce this with it doesn't hurt that Netflix and Marvel are doing things too, but getting to be here and work directly with those folks is just a blessing. And I know I sound a little bit like a zealot sometimes, but it truly is. I am one of those people that says, if you find your passion, go at it, and know that, you might not sleep for 4 days making a feature, but 10 years from then, things can be pretty awesome. So, stick with it, do the trench work, and dreams can come true. Because I got to tell you, this literally was one of those kind of childhood dreams. And I mean, one of my business partners has the Godzilla that I used to have as a child and play with on a regular. So massive E.G. Tsuburaya fan from as young as I can remember. So we do things like this, and I have others of this, but we're running up against the time, and I really want to speak to what is one of our emerging IPs, existing as a card game, but this is evolving into so much more. So Zybrid, I'll give you a little tease of kind of where we're headed. The Zybrid Cup is a no-holds-barred robot-to-robot battle championship held at the beginning of the Mars calendar year. It's the final event of the season for the league. Competitors are made up of teams of robotic engineers, biologists, physicists, and chemists who design the perfect Zybrids for competition. Over the past 10 years, the Zybrid Cup and subsequent League of Zybrid tournaments has amassed tens of billions of fans, Earth to Mars, and all points in between. So this is turning into what was originally this card game here, and I can go grab it over here, but I won't, because I've got the cut-ups here. So a transparency card game, very focused at the Steam STEM kind of younger audience that we brought in, working with Gabe, the creator of this, just brilliant artist. Gabe, we love you. And took this and evolved it into what is becoming this insanely rich story world that I'm so excited about. And I got some permissions here to be able to show some early concept artwork. So I do want to caveat that, like, in the end, the characters that you may see in the story may look a little different, these are original concept storyboards, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes, 3D spaces and places, things that are going on that that I'm really excited about with this property. And I'm just gonna, this is about a minute, but I'm just gonna kind of give you a tease, because there's also like audio dramas and in 3D immersive spaces and sonically this thing. What I wish is I could put you all inside a pair of AirPod Pros and listen to this next piece. But I'm going to just play this in a minute, because this really just does kind of give a heart to this piece. This thing is setting up to be, and again, I know I sound like the hype man from hell, and I don't mean to, but I just get blessed with being able to see and be involved with some of these things. They're just purely magical, and this is one of them. And I'll definitely keep you guys in the loop. I was trying to share a little bit more visuals there, but I got the audio cleared, so I wanted you to at least hear the kind of sweeping scale of where we're headed with this thing. It is going to be quite a ride. So I'm hoping you guys check that out. ZyberGame.com is currently where we're at. We're headed towards Zyber.world as probably the centralized URL, because we're evolving beyond just a game. So why us? Why did we do this? Anybody can do this. Anybody can tell a story. There's lots of people that have virtual production capabilities. But our team, and what is collecting through our partners and partnerships, it's just amassed into this thing where we're able to kind of connect and build a community and audiences over time, or integrate with, this is a perfect example. One of our most friendly communities right now is Reddit. I'll just leave it there and say, like, it's nurturing, it's connecting, it's engaging, it's how you do this long dance. And it can be insanely difficult, especially with brands that don't quite understand and don't quite get it, to get these things executed on. So we're Iceberg Theory, and I'm John Hartman. This is a little bit of me on the personal side and a little bit of what we're doing. I will throw a shout out at the bottom to New Rockstars. This is an amazing project we're working with, and keep your eyes tuned, or however you want to say. But there's a lot of stuff. So the New Rockstars channel does a lot of shows, right? Marvel, different series, pop culture, those kinds of things. Looking at Easter eggs, diving into the kind of meatiness of media kind of thing. There's a lot of great stuff there for that. And then, play around on a couple of those other channels. IcebergTheory.co is our company. Transmediaproducer.com is my site. Personally, I got to give a shout out to the team, because I'm so proud and just so honored. We got nominated for an NAACP Image Award for what we did with Snapchat. So go check that out. And thank you, team. And just, again, I'm going to say it, blessed. And then, of course, Ultraman Connection. It's so much fun. You guys will love it. And I'll come back to the live events for the Ultraman Connection, because I didn't forget. I sort of did. So the live events are how I can characterize this is, if WWE happened in Disneyland, Okay, so what happens during all of these live shows, and especially in the Asian markets, when you go and you see the live show for Ultraman, is the characters are in costume on stage. And so, as an example, there was what looked like a giant, a giant kaiju, like a 13-foot kind of inflatable kaiju on stage, battling these characters from a show, and it's just sheer joy. And then the release of different content and media, other channels, things like a game and 3D interactive experience or a video. These kinds of releases that are going on during these live events, and that's really at the core of what we do. Is we build these kind of metaverse entry points for live shows and media properties. It's as one of many, and that's me.
Thank you, John. This is very helpful. Some great insights on kind of what is today, and one of the questions we had in the chat was how far are we from Ready Player One, and your team responded maybe 5 years. We'll see how that ends up. Did you want to add anything to that of just what you're seeing in modern media, how the metaverse is it portrayed?
I have deals right now where we're ready playing me, but it's not. I think the biggest problem in the mindset is that it's this idea it's 1-for-1, right? In Ready Player Me, you took the Vorpal sword from D&D and you went into Back to the Future or whatever, right? I mean, you cross these boundaries with these very specific things, and everything worked everywhere. I think that's the big fallacy of what it is. From a technological standpoint, right, I can already, with Axie Infinite or other games that are out there, you can go and melt down the things that you got in my game and build things in theirs, or, my elements can work in there, right? There's mechanics technically for us to be able to interchange items between games. But this holistic across the board working everywhere, the reason they can achieve that in Ready Player One is the Oasis is a monopoly. I don't know if you've ever read Ready Player Two. I would highly recommend it.
Oh yeah, is that the sequel? I assume.
Yes.
Nice.
And it speaks to what happens when the power becomes complete, shall we say? Maybe is a good way to say that.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks.
But,
I think
I would say 5 years is a bit of a stretch. You're going to start to see this stuff happen quite a bit because the framework for moving things back and forth, it just won't be that true. It's a price point thing, right? The cost of the Apple glasses will get, or Samsung, Sony, whatever, right? Whatever this becomes, will get to a point to where this becomes a $500 item or a $299 item like Facebook has done. And now you can hit that mass market fluctuation point. You're probably right in that that's a 5-year destination. But actually people participating in this economy and being in the metaverse is a now thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. So we are basically out of time. So we're gonna wrap this up. But John, thanks for your time. You included a bunch of links in your presentation, and we may include a link to the YouTube channel and your LinkedIn profile, and maybe a link to the Iceberg Theory so everybody can find you. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. I think it's good for us to kind of get ready for the future of AR, VR, XR. Even I learned something today. So thanks for sharing, and we'll catch you maybe in the real world or maybe in the virtual world, right?
Probably both.
All right, sounds good. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time. You can see these, check the rest of our shows on YouTube or go to our website, anvilmedia.com. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.